Hey there, it's Steve, that HOA guy. This happened really quick this time, so I guess I should have seen that coming. Today, I'm going to answer a few questions that I got since I just put up the videos. And let's just jump right into it. So, the first one was our board wants to make a requirement for candidates to first serve on committees before running for a board member position. Can they do that? And simple answer is no, they can't do that. So we go back to one of our favorite um, state laws, and we will go to 6438.025, and this is under subsection 2. And we've quoted this in a previous video, but it gets repeated a lot. The board of directors shall not act on behalf of the association to do any of the following, and one of them is determine the qualifications, powers, and duties or terms of office of members of the board of directors. So the qualifications, what makes you qualified to run for the board, is usually you're a homeowner. You're otherwise a member of the association. So the idea that you have to do something extra to do that is just not true. So um, we'll look at that time and time again, and it's just basically the requirements are there in your governing documents. Making new requirements is not allowed. Now, the assumption is that the rest of the members that live in your community will want well-versed, experienced, capable, competent board members. And so if you don't have any track record or history or experience, they may not elect you. They may elect somebody else. But in a lot of boards, there's not enough candidates to fill the positions. And so you're left begging for someone to serve on the board. It's a thankless job that pays nothing. So it's hard sometimes to get candidates to run for the board. Um, because of that, making any additional requirements is usually counterproductive. But in this case, it's also against the statute. So no, you can't do that. All right, we'll look at the next one. This one's an easy one. And I am not going to read the question. I'm just going to give you the answer. And the answer is no, I did not pay for this haircut. This is a COVID cut that I did myself. So thanks for that question. The internet's such a happy place to be sometimes. Okay, the next question was more of a statement and then a question. It says, we have a board president that regularly makes statements about issues and what the board is going to do about those issues, even though the board hasn't discussed the issue yet. What can I do as a board member? So this is a board member that's dealing with a very overzealous president. And there's some things to understand about being a board officer, especially being a board president. First of all, a board president is not a super board member. I will pull up a little bit here to look at. A board president is actually just a board member that is presiding at the meeting. So in the Klahani bylaws, we can see that there's a section on the president that said the president shall preside at all meetings, hence the word president, the presider of the association and of the board, and shall have all powers and duties usually vested in the office of president. Those duties and powers are basically limited to what the board has granted to the president. So you want someone who can sign agreements, sign contracts. You want to have people that can sign checks. Usually you're going to have two people do that. And so those powers are normally granted to the president or another board member or both, and they have those powers. But as far as determining the general plan of what the board's going to accomplish that year, or the direction that the association is going to go on any issues, that's really not up to the board, the president. Because if you were going to vest that kind of power in one board member as president, then you would elect them as president by a vote of the association. But they're not elected that way. Once all the board members are selected, then the board members get together and among themselves, they decide who's going to preside over the meeting, who's going to take minutes, who's going to be the treasurer, and who's going to be the backup presider in case the president is gone. So that's why you have president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. They can also have like a parliamentarian or somebody else that they want. They can come up with other jobs that they can ask a board member to take part in. If you're a board member, do you have to take part in any of those? No, you can just be a board member at large. And there's no requirement for you to take a position if you don't want to. But jobs have to get done and everybody's trying to help and pull their weight. So that's why you usually end up with a title of some sort. What can you do if your board president suddenly thinks that because they've been selected board president by the rest of the board that somehow they're a super board member and that they have more power to control the direction and the outcomes that are coming along? Or, and I've seen this many times, if the board president likes to make proclamations at the beginning of a meeting about things that the board has not decided, and they're trying to address the membership and say, rest assured, we're going to do A or B or C. The only thing you can do is in the meeting itself is you can call a point of order and just tell the president, I'm sorry, this statement's out of order. The board has not agreed to any of this. That's kind of embarrassing. So I don't recommend that. What I do recommend is going to the president of the board ahead of time privately and just explaining this to them and saying, look, I support you as president. You run a great meeting. I like the way that you run the meetings and make sure all voices are heard, or whatever it is that they're doing well. And you say, but when you give these statements ahead of time about a message from the president, it's as though you are talking for the entire board. And that's not something we want you to do, not something I want you to do when we haven't discussed an issue. Now, if the entire board has come to a consensus, and then after the fact, that decision or plan of action needs to be explained to the community, that's a fine thing for the president to do, as long as they explain it accurately and what the board has decided to do. But the mistake is they're not a super board member. They have no power greater in deciding what's going to happen than any other board member. They're just another vote on the board. And sometimes they have to be reminded of that. But like I said, the way that you understand why that's true is just the common sense idea that if you were going to give a board member some sort of superpowers, that would be something that would be reserved for the membership to vote on. All the owners would say, well, tell us what you're interested in. Tell us what your plans are. Tell us what you want to see for our community. And then that would decide whether or not they elected someone to be their president. But most HOAs don't work that way. You're elected to the board along with every other board member. And then among the board members, you decide who's going to hold what job. Okay, hope that answered that one. Next question is, our governing documents say that association meetings need to be announced 14 days ahead of time, but our board often meets on short notice. As an owner, what can I do? Okay, here is a common mistake, and I think I have the right one pulled up to show, so let me get to it. That is, here we go. This is the state law in Washington, RCW 6438.035 sub 2, and it talks about association meetings and what's required in notice. Not less than 14 nor more than 60 days in advance of any meeting of the association, the secretary or other officers specified in the bylaws shall provide notice to owners of record. So this looks like it's requiring you to have the notice. But here's the misunderstanding. Um, it's just a real common thing. We're talking about an association meeting versus a board meeting. And lots of folks get this mixed up in the beginning. The board is the board, and the board acts in all cases on behalf of the association. But an association meeting, which is a meeting of all of the homeowners, because you're going to vote on the budget or an annual meeting, you're going to elect board of director members, you're going to remove some board of director meetings, members at a special meeting, things like that. That's a meeting of the association. So the association is when all of the homeowners get together to meet in person or by proxy on Zoom meeting, however you're going to do it. The board meeting is different than that. And boards can meet actually whenever they want to. Now, some of your governing documents will say that the board members are supposed to give 3 days notice. The exception to that is if all the board members show up, then none of them can object to lack of notice. So let's say you have a storm that came through, a giant tree fell on one of your buildings. The board wanted to get together right away. They don't have 3 days to wait. There's, rain coming in and, they need to make some big decisions about what they're going to do. They would call a meeting. The only person or persons who could object to lack of notice of that meeting would be anyone on the board of directors who couldn't make it. They could object. They might not object. They might say, hey, I'm on vacation or I'm at the lake and I understand you guys had to do something, so I'm not going to object. But that's the only person that would have the right to object to that lack of notice of the meeting. And then they should send out, even if it's on short notice, even if they're going to meet an hour from now, they should send out a blast email with an invitation to any owners that want to attend and listen in on the meeting. You don't necessarily get to participate, but you do get to observe and watch and listen and see what's going on. Okay, I hope that helps. Big difference between the association meetings, which is everybody, and the board meetings, which is board of directors, can be attended by anybody that wants to observe, but it's just the board members. And so there's not that notice required for your board. I think that's it. I think that takes care of it. I hope it does. Okay, that should be it. That's the questions that I got. I'd like to say if you have questions, you can email me at stephenjdavis@gmail.com. That's Stephen with a V, Steven, the letter J, Davis@gmail.com. Or you can text my phone, area code 913-299-4200. Or you can make a comment on one of these videos, and I try to look there. Most people don't want their questions public, so they send them to me privately. And then if you like the videos, give me a thumbs up there at the bottom. If you want to be notified when a new video comes out, hit subscribe, and I think that'll let you know whenever a new video comes out. So that's it for today. Those are the questions that I was able to answer. If you have questions, give me a shout. Thanks so much. See you next time.